Right.
Yeah.
Welcome, Jason, to this chat.
The first of many.
The first of many chats.
Yeah. No, it's, I think it's been a long time coming, isn't it? Really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So we'll be discussing all things design
Sure.
when it comes to the Locum's platform.
Yeah.
And we'll talk theory, we'll talk practice, we'll talk ideas and thoughts about
Sure.
everything that.
There's a lot of everything to cover.
Yes.
Yeah.
But given this is our first session,
Yeah.
I thought it would be good to almost introduce ourselves
Sure.
as the design team, the product design team.
So a bit of background,
A
basically.
bit of background,
Yeah.
exactly. Because that's important in how it translates to the mobile app, to the web platform, and everything that we do. So we couldn't be more different, right?
No, we couldn't. I mean, in terms of disciplines as well and backgrounds, but I think it's those differences that have just basically filled the gaps in both of our kind of work experience and kind of, propelled us to where.
Because I think it's because we have the common aim or vision to break the status quo, but in different ways. So my background is I'm a medic. Before then I was at medical school for 6 years, and before then I was in the army, all very regimented professions, so to speak, very protocol driven. Whereas you
was the complete opposite, where it was kind of like, where everything was kind of like sky's the limit. Don't think small, think big. And what kind of, there is process, but the process is less restricted. And that's kind of always been the way. And you know, with most designers, when you try to put them into some kind of box, they usually tend to freak out.
And you've got experience in multiple disciplines, not just product design, right?
No, so I mean, so I initially started as a web designer, which was when in the kind of the
.com, is it?
.com, the .com days, and it was kind of this whole new scape. But even before that, I was studying as a more traditional graphic designer, which was more print based. You know, the kind of the more common artistic arts, but then kind of being a nerd and a geek all along, when I saw that there was this kind of new frontier, it was kind of like, how can I not get involved in this? And that's been a mad trip to kind of this. And you're right, I think what happened was it was no discipline, to then move into the whole product design based way of working, which is disciplined.
It's very disciplined, and I think we'll touch upon that when we discuss my first topic of the day, which is the journey of the shift. Many people don't know this, but before you joined us, I designed the first version of the mobile app, and it was basic. It was functional, but basic. And then Ahmed and I met you. You remember the first time we met, and we thought, okay, this guy isn't boring, as we are, and he's going to bring the magic that we need in the app. And the first thing you did when you came in, I remember clearly, and that was many years ago now. Was to review what we had and start from scratch the thinking. And we went and we pasted boards and paper on the walls of the office, and we started from scratch.
Looked like a
post-it notes and everything. And it was, let's discuss the journey of the shift and how we translate that into a visual representation.
Sure.
So it is now famous, dare I say, iconic of shift card. Right? And when I say the shift card, it's the way that a shift is represented on a mobile app screen, on a laptop screen, or a computer screen. Could you describe it to me, and then explain how we got to that state that we have now?
So the classic shift card, I think when I remember first looking at the app and seeing what we had, it was. I found it hard to. First, I had to get my head around the whole principle of the way that a hospital or a GP shift worked, because there's a lot of data and
a lot of information, right?
No, totally. And it was like, what is the priority of the information?
Yeah.
Which information is more key to helping doctors or whoever's using the app choose shifts? So for me, it was to kind of audit what was already existing and then work through that process with you to understand that this is the information that makes doctors choose these shifts. And then we kind of had to look at, okay, so this is what we have now. How do we create a new foundation that we can build upon and, future-proof for going forwards?
If I may hold on to something you said, which is what information doctors want to see to make up their minds regarding a shift, whether they want to book that shift or not. You can display all sorts of information, right? I can say now there's 15 or 20 different items of information one could choose from, but what is the maximum one should display? Because there's too much information and there's too little, right? And both are equally harmful, so to speak. Or
remember, so that was I think that was the first breakthrough that we had in one of our workout sessions. Was we prioritized the shift information and we gave it a number based on the level of importance, and then we decided that. I think it was 5 pieces of data was the key. So then based on that,
then we ranked them, remember?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we ranked them, and then when we came up with our ranked list, it gave me a clear indication of how much data we could fit into a card to give our product the maximum, experience.
Of course, because people browse for shifts, much like browsing for products to buy anything.
Yeah.
So you took those 5 pieces of information, 4 or 5 pieces, right? How did you visually translate them into the shift card?
So this is where we had the classic. I wouldn't say classic, but it would be classic breakthrough moment, like in any good movie. It was kind of we were working through it, and then all of a sudden it was this idea of quadrants came up.
Yes.
And then that was kind of like and I think that was
an aha moment. Why? Because, and I know as the original first designer, having no design background by the way, I just put in a like a box, 3 or 4 different pieces of information, and that's it. Boring, right? And it is also, they look the same. You don't attract the attention of the user to the right pieces. Exactly. What do they want to see first? What do they want to see second? And what you did is thought, okay, let me divide that box into quadrants and see how people read that information. What do they see first? Do they see the times or the date of the shift? Do they see the title of the shift?
And you remember we tried a few variants of that, which we focus grouped, and we found that even with the quadrants, where we put the data mattered massively. If the title was at the bottom and the
specialty where
exactly. And then so even that was a case of fine tuning, but we realized with the quadrants it gave us the freedom to really kind of harness that information and kind of place it in an order of importance that made users go, right, that's the shift I want to do.
That's it. And I open it and I read the details and I apply. And that was the beginning.
Yeah.
Because what came next was adapting that foundation to the whole journey of the shift. Yeah. And by the way, the journey starts with the rota coordinator on the other end that posts the shift, and they have the similar sort of design. And then you take it to when it's from a state where it's an empty shift to your booked shift, and you introduce different color coding, and then you take it all the way to the timesheet, where I think that's where it gets really clever. The timesheet tracker, where it's sort of like a loading bar that shows you where in the process your timesheet is.
Well, because with any job, getting paid is a key. Well, it's why we work.
To begin with,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. I mean, well, you want to get paid for what you do.
You need to pay your rent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, and especially having freelanced myself, variously, you know, different organisations, some are paying this way, some are paying that way, and you have to make decisions for your life based on how you're getting paid.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was super key for us to find a way to allow our users feel that they were totally in control of their finances, when their money was coming in, who had a timesheet being signed off, if there was a problem with a timesheet, because that way they could act upon it. Because otherwise, you know, you're just working along in the dark, and you know,
and you don't even know whether you get paid. And I can tell you, both as a doctor having Locum myself, but also by speaking to everybody, the main problem was not knowing. You sign it pre Locum's Nest. You sign a paper timesheet, you put it under a door, and you're hoping that somebody on the other end will pick it up and process it, right? Now, mistakes happen. We all know this. All you need to know is that there's been a delay, or the timesheet is moving through the process, because there is a process.
Well, because then you can act, or you can react accordingly. But not knowing is,
it's scary. And so that came into the card.
Yes.
And to date, you've adapted the card, but it always remains that you halved it into two smaller boxes to fit other needs. But it's so versatile.
Well, that was you know, one of the things that, you know, we talked about right at the very beginning, was kind of creating a new foundation and allowing ourselves to create a new language that we can always build upon.
And that's the discipline.
Yes.
that we were discussing earlier.
Exactly. So you know, even if there are points of difference, the visual information or the visual language there's a theme, so you don't feel like you've just gone from X, you know, or from A to Y without knowing what's happening.
And that's the constraints.
Yes.
Those are the constraints that you need to put yourself in, like a designer.
But there's good constraints in the aspect of what we were doing.
Yes.
And you know, and that's kind of led us to a place now where we pretty much have a library, and you know, we can create or dismantle or come up with, you know, new flows, new products within hours almost sometimes.
Exactly. It maintains a language that's the Locum's Nest language, the design language that's translated all the way into everything we do.
Well, one of the things that we were very aware of was that within the kind of health tech space, that also the language was very cold and it was very clinical, and it was almost felt like, because it's healthcare, it has to be dead serious.
Yes, my God. I mean, this is a nice end to a first section, because what we did is we wanted to show to our colleagues, to begin with, healthcare professionals, both frontline and the managers behind the scenes that are working day in, day out to support the profession, that we care.
Yes.
And the way that is what I want to discuss in our second session, is how do we show that we care with design?
Oh, and that was a huge thing for me as well. Even before I came to Locum's Nest, one of the things that I was really driven by was the idea that, you know, it's like, okay, why does healthcare have to look this way and act this way?
And be boring.
Yeah.
So with that, don't spoil it. Wrap up. See you next time.
See you next time.